to our mini grants post-award management training. And we're thrilled that you're here because it makes the management team a lot more relaxed about helping you get through your year project. So we're recording it today because there were quite a few people who received mini grants and aren't able to be here for various reasons. So, and also we'll post it to the grants management and funding opportunities page so that it's there in perpetuity and we can update it and take it down, etc. When people come in, if you can sign the registration list so that we have a record of everyone who's here. And joining me today in co-presenting will be Joe Piazza from HR, Nadine Smith from Finance, and Grace Strawn. So we're going to do this in a team effort and try to make it as informal as possible so that you can get your answers to all your questions. And the goal is really for you to feel comfortable that you can manage the process from start to finish without pain, but also with a lot of communication. So we found, our team has found that the more communication there is between the PI and the management team, the easier it is on all of us and the less stress there is. It's when we don't hear that something's happening and then we have to fix it in some way because the PI maybe didn't ask questions ahead of time or didn't, inquire or thought they knew but really didn't know, so that we have to go into the fix-it mode, and then that creates a kind of a chain reaction down the line with more people than just us that have to get involved to deal with that situation. So let's get started on the formal presentation. So first of all, congratulations, because it's not easy to get these awards. And the review panel spends quite a bit of time looking over your proposal, debating, asking questions, coming up with lists of questions as you have seen, and they take it really seriously. And the dean, all the deans take it seriously, and I think that it's just a really wonderful opportunity. There's another person to get something done that you would like to see done. If you could sign the registration form, Chris. That otherwise wouldn't get done. So all of you are doing things for the libraries that wouldn't normally get done. Maybe it would be good for everyone to introduce themselves and say the name of your project. So we'll start with Rebecca.
Put me on the spot, I'm just gone blank. Rebecca Jefferson. Name of my project? Good question. It's a project to digitise a set of special anniversary issues of Jewish newspapers from around the world.
And why is that important?
They're of great historical importance. They're going to help us learn more about the history of the Jewish press.
Great. And they go way back. How far back?
They're 19th century.
19th century is the earliest.
Century. And a lot of them, some of them were newspapers that were discontinued after the Nazis came to power, so they record a time period when before the Holocaust.
Cool. Barbara.
I'm Barbara Hood from administration, and we have a pilot project for an intern who will concentrate on one collection, which will be the Judaica collection, since the 30th anniversary is coming up this spring. And she will help with PR and marketing, grantmanship, and development for that project.
Great, and I guess you should.
And this is our intern, Kate Wilson, who is about to graduate with her library degree from USF in December.
I'm Cindy Craig. I work on the 5th floor, and I'm part of a team. We're going to create, in collaboration with Digital Worlds, some online video tutorials that have to do with primary documents in history, and also showing how to use them effectively, combine them into something like a little interesting little mini documentary if you want to.
Now, why Why is that important?
Well, there aren't that many tutorials that kind of focus on a specific topic and focus on online materials and primary sources as well as some secondary sources in history. So we're going to focus on a couple different aspects of American history and show how you can put together a project using these different online sources.
Perfect.
Well, Rolando Millán, I'm part of the Grant Management Committee. I'm at the Health Science Center Library, and just here for the training. I'm curious about it.
You're actually here to help out with Jennifer's group because they couldn't send a representative. Just wanted to let you know that. And if you could describe Jennifer's project a little bit.
Well, it's an application of a new software, a RedCap software that is using clinical trials and clinical studies, and it's a new application of the software for analyzing like a bank of searches that we do in the reference department, and it's a new application of this software, and it's going to be very interesting.
So that's a proof of concept, and why do you think it's important?
Well, it's going to be, we're going to be able to study what are the patterns of, like our patrons, request searches, and we'll be able to even design training for, new librarians, and we're very excited about that.
That's great. Okay. So just remember that even though we're videotaping this, then you can assist Jennifer to get caught up. Okay. Richard, you want to introduce
Yeah, my name's
yourself?
Richard Salzberg, and I'm going to be working with an Arabic faculty member. We're going to be interviewing Arab immigrants in Florida. And it's also the material that we get will be archived in the digital library, and it'll also be used as material to teach a class in modern Arabic culture from the point of view of immigrants. And it's also a proof of concept in that I'm taking an oral history class, and I'm learning how to do oral histories. I interviewed somebody yesterday, as a matter of fact. And so that'll be something that the library might be able to use in the future.
Great.
My oral history interviewing talents.
And why do you think that it's important to do this project?
Well, I think Arab immigrants are part of our mainstream society, but they're kind of overlooked as a population. And the increasing importance of the Arab world is obvious due to current events. And it's a growing department. There are lots of people that study Arabic nowadays. And I think it's about time, that some focus is put on.
Also to note that the interviews will be largely in Arabic.
In Arabic,
And then translated, and the translations will be available, the transcription of the translation in English will be available, so the students will have both the English version in writing, in documentation, and the audio Arabic language conversation. Okay, Marilyn.
I'm Marilyn Ochoa from the Education Library. We're doing a smart board instruction program training. We had asked for funding for technologies, but what we really want to do with that technology is to use it in order to teach our College of Ed student teaching students, teacher education students, how to use the technology. We've discovered that the College of Education hasn't been able to provide that sort of instruction to their students, and there's about 1,400 students in the School of Teaching and Learning, and the faculty can't support that number of students in order to learn how to use this technology that's being embedded into all of the Title I classrooms across Alachua County and perhaps beyond this county. So we thought it was important for us to fill that gap.
And are you also going to be inviting librarians and staff members to learn how to use this?
Yes, once we've established the training program.
Great.
We plan on
Great. Thanks.
Ben Walker, head of the Education Library, and Maryland summing up our projects.
Okay. Matthew, Chris?
My name is Matt. I'm Chris. And we are working on the same project. It's basically develop tour content, which we hope to create an augmented reality web tour that people will use on their iPhones and other devices on campus.
So this is phase 1, and it's to create the content. and the committee encouraged the team to apply in February for a possible emerging technologies award to complete the project, but the content will be able to be used.
Yeah, many
Right.
different places, hopefully, handouts, websites, like a web tour.
So it's a web tour of the libraries, of all the libraries. And it's important because, why do you think it's important?
It grounds people to the university, I think, to know where all the buildings are, and where the locations of the libraries are. It's like central to education, so.
And correct information?
Yeah, and correct information. Correct information about hours, services, etc.
Uh-huh, cool.
And fun, hopefully.
Uh-huh, fun, yes. Matthew?
And I'm Matthew Daly, and this little project very well.
Great.
I'm Naomi Young, I'm on the Grants Management Committee, and I thought that if I was going to evaluate y'all on how well you work with your grants, it would be good for me to know what you are supposed to do. So,
Which is great to have Rolando and Naomi representing the committee. Okay, so this is the agenda for the session. We're going to be going over the actual documentation and information that you need, all the information that our team feels you need in order to manage the project. Some of you will need all of this information, and some of you will need just a little bit of it, depending on what you're purchasing, how you're spending your money, what the activities are in your plan for your timeline. So some of this will be relevant now to your project, and some of it won't. But what we'd like to do is that it's all relevant if you're going to be working with grants, period. So in the future, you might not need to know how to hire a student, right, for your project now because you don't have a student in your budget. But it could be that we work together in the future and you've got an external grant and you have to hire a student. But, and so you'll have this information and you'll understand a little bit more and have more context for the future. So please don't discount the things that you think you don't need to know, because you might need to know later. All right, we're going to go over a checklist, hiring, OPS, other expenses for people who have in their budgets expenses that are not related to hiring, how you use an outside consultant or an outside vendor. We have people who have that in their budgets. All of you have cost sharing, and all of you will have to do the mini grant reporting. So these are the objectives. We want to build understanding about the mechanics of managing grant funds, especially mini grant funds. We want you to understand our roles and who does what and who to call. And we want to strengthen your inquiry skills so that you will ask before you do. Right, team? Yes. Okay. So these are the aspects of responsibilities within the management of the Grants Management Office. So basically, these are my roles. I'm available to you for any reason, at any time, hopefully if I'm here, to deal with your project. I have a student assistant who we will send you her email address. Her name is Suchi Yelapantula, and it's actually grants@ufl.edu is her address, and she's here every week. So if there's some reason that I'm not available, she will have information, and your next contact person should either be Grace or Nadine with a question about your mini grant if I'm not around. But so what we've tried to do is kind of create a system where questions come through me so I know what's going on, and then I work with the team and then get back to you that way, so that the team doesn't have 10 people, because you're 10, or I think it's 8 mini grants. It's 8 mini grants plus all of the other grants we have externally that are all happening at the same time. So that's more than 20 It could be 23 proposals that are being managed at one time. And if all of those 23 PIs were contacting the finance office one at a time, it would really be a nightmare. So what we do is try to manage the flow of information, because sometimes I can just answer your question and it doesn't have to go to finance. But if I can't, then I go to finance. If they have a question about something, they come to me first, so that they're not going directly to the PIs. So, because it could be that I have the information and I can quickly answer the question. So we're trying to create an efficient system where communication doesn't overload anyone in the system. So I will assist you with your interim report, and I will assist you with your final report, and we will look at those documents at the end after we've gone through the other information. So any questions about my role? Okay, so now I'm not up for this. Who's doing this one? Okay. Oh, wait. I need to go through the checklist. Okay, so come to your other, yes. Come to this checklist, because this will give you a good orientation. Yes, now I understand why Nadine looked at me like, huh? Okay, so all the activities that you could possibly do, we think we've captured them. We keep expanding this list, so this is a work in progress, we have to say. That every time we realize that there's another step that someone had to do, we add it to the list. So, across the top, you'll see, is the PI at all responsible for this? Is the grants office responsible? The fiscal office, the HR office, and the date it should be completed. So we just tried to create some format to capture everything that you would need to know about in terms of what's happening. So, you know, it's 19 steps. It's not a quick thing here. So you've received your award letter. You're in the post-award training. So 1 and 2, hopefully, are taken care of. Number 3, set up the account. That's going to be in the fiscal office. So that will be invisible to you, except for that you'll get assigned an account number for your project. So Nadine will be doing that for you and sending that to you. And your budget will get set up so that it can be tracked. Then there's going to be, we're going to update it, and there's a grants tracking database within the funding opportunities page. And we're going to update your proposal. So your proposal will be available online for other people to view. We have a record of all the mini grants, all the mini grant applications are online so that other people can see them and use them as examples of projects. So that's going to be invisible to you unless, you know, we'll let you know when it's up. If you want to point people to it or whatever, it'll be a permanent location for your electronic version. Then, number 5, that's your responsibility. You start your project. And for those of you that can start your project now because you don't have budgetary limitations or barriers that prevent you from starting, you should start, right? It's only the budget part that should be hampering you from getting started. And that's going to be done, Nadine will go over when that's going to happen. So if you need OPS people, then you would work with the HR office. Submit your new hiring paperwork. Number 8, monitor employees' time. All of that we're going to go over. Submit OPS employee termination paperwork after you're done. Terminate the employee. 11, send PI monthly financial reports. So on a regular basis, number 11, Nadine's going to go over what she's going to be sending you so that you'll know where you are in your budget. And that's going to be, it's going to be the fiscal office's responsibility to send it to you, but then it's your responsibility to understand what it says, right? And then act accordingly. So then you'll be monitoring your financial reports, which is just what I covered. Number 13, compare reports to payroll and other expenditures, because you want to make sure that your reports are correct and they line up with what you know about who's worked and what expenses you've had. So you have to monitor those reports. I'm also seeing them, and we have copies of them in the grants office. You'll have to complete the mini grant cost share form for the people who are working on your project, and make sure that all of that cost share is accounted for. You'll get a reminder about your interim report due, and then you'll prepare that. You'll get a reminder about your final report, and then you'll prepare that. And then we will close out the proposal and you'll be finished. So there are situations that come up, and we'll go through the slides, where we need to work something out. And that's when we'll discuss those specific issues when they come up in the slides. Any questions on this? Does this seem like it will be helpful to you to make sure that you know what's going on? Okay. All right, now it's
So, this is what our office does. We will provide you with a project number, and they all start with MG. And then you'll have your number, which you want to use for anything you do. If you hire someone and you have to do a blue card, which we'll talk about a little bit later, you want to put it on that. If you purchase something, if you have to do a Grover ticket, you want to put it on that, because it's the only way we know that this is going to be paid off with your grant. Joe's going to go over the recruiting and the hiring. We're going to talk about general expenses, anything other than personnel. We're going to go over the cost share a little bit, and finally the reporting. That gets done every month. You'll get it by email from me. So I kind of went over the project numbers already. So we're going to have a meeting with each of you, and we'll assign you the project number there. And then, Joe, do you want to do the...
the arrows on the far corner, just press down. Yeah.
Yes, OPS is just at-will temporary jobs. You can categorize it into two parts. First part are non-students, and the second part are students, so it's really one or the other. And for student OPS, it's either they're federal work-study students or they're not federal work-study students. And here are the rules for student assistants and federal work-study students. They have to be at least half-time students. That means 9 hours in the fall or spring, 6 hours in the summer, registered. They can only work up to 20 hours per week. They can't work any more than that. Especially true for federal work study. I mean, it's true for both of them, but for federal work study, there's punishment involved, where if you go over your hours. And they cannot work during exam week, so you gotta make sure what their schedule is. And international students, they cannot be a federal work study. It's just not allowed, it's not possible. So if you're hiring for a federal work study position, you're gonna wanna weed out the international students.
Do you want to talk about the different
Yes.
Perfect.
Most departments for student assistance, they're gonna wanna hire federal work study because the government pays 75% of their wage, of their hourly wage, and the department pays only 25%. And this slide shows student OPS, non-student, student OPS, non-student OPS, and then the federal work study student at 20 hours a week, and at the bottom it shows you what the cost is to the department. And federal work study costs a lot less. So at the minimum wage of $7.25, your department will only have to pay $181 of that hourly wage. And 20 hours a week is equivalent to 0.5 FTE, full-time equivalent. And if you're full-time, like all of us are, we're 1.0. Students are at most 0.5. You can't be any more than that. And for international international students in particular, it is very important that they never go over 20 hours per week, because I talked to student employment before about one international student, and they told me that if they go over their 20 hours a week, they talked about the possibility of deportment. So I don't know.
They're actually in violation of the student visa if they work more than 20 hours a week.
Yeah, so it's very serious that you gotta watch their hours in particular.
I ran into that at another school, so I know, and it is serious. They will really come down on you.
And then that's, I'm just gonna talk about,
Okay, that's me.
that's you. Okay.
So, in the grants world, there is what we call the issue of conflict of interest. And one of the categories of conflict of interest is nepotism. We did have a situation with a grant project where someone unknowingly hired a relative of one of the project team people. And because they were qualified, didn't really think that it was important to ask, or didn't see it as a conflict of interest. So the way to avoid conflict, which is where there's an issue that benefits you personally. So in this case, it benefited because in that situation, someone on the project team was receiving grant funds related to the hiring and the award. The only situation there that caused it not to be a conflict was because that person was not being supervised by that family member. So we determined that it wasn't a conflict of interest and that it wasn't quote-unquote nepotism, where a family member was benefiting from the grant award. But the way to avoid any perception of conflict is to disclose the information to me prior, or to finance, or to HR, to say, these are the people we're hiring for this project, and it happens that, and we would like to hire this person, but we're not sure. So disclosure is always the best way to go. So in the case that I'm illustrating, we didn't have disclosure. It was only way after the fact, after many months that this person was being paid, that we discovered the relationship. So you always want to disclose any possible situation that might create a conflict of interest, where someone is benefiting within the grant project team from a relationship and there's an exchange of money. So you just want to be careful with that in any way. It could be an outside vendor with whom you have a familial relationship, And you want to disclose that ahead of time before you make any commitment to that purchase or to that exchange of dollars. So we thought it's important. This is new, we haven't discussed this before, and it's only because it occurred, and now we're using that as another example about educating you to keep your eyes and ears open, and then to ask for assistance before you proceed.
Okay, so with, so you know there's a position you want to fill, but you're not sure how to post it, to advertise it. What you're going to want to do is, well, first, I would recommend you go to the Smathers HR website, which is uflab.ufl.edu/PERS. And then there'll be links on the left side. Go to employment opportunities, follow the links to the student and OPS positions. And then on that page should be a list of jobs that are being offered by the different libraries. So Government Docs has a position they want to fill, that'll be up there. Education Up, a position they want to fill, that'll be up there. If you go right now, it's actually blank. So there's no position, no one's hiring anyone. But there usually is a job up there. Click on that job and it'll bring the description of that position. There'll be pay rate, requirements, etc. I would suggest you just cut and paste, use that as a template, and then put in your information that's relevant to your job. Put that in an email and just send it to me. There's nothing really official you have to do. Just send me an email saying that if you want to hire, here's the information, please post it, and I'll do that. And if there are any disqualifying questions, definitely include those. Disqualifying question will be, for example, you want to hire federal work study students. The disqualifying question is, are you federal work study eligible? You want to be very clear about that, because there's going to be a lot of people applying, a lot of students applying, and if you can weed out some of them, it could be helpful for you. And that's what the disqualifying question does. Any student that answers no to federal work study, that application gets kicked out and you never see it.
So about how many applications do you think for the because everyone who created budgets for their grant projects did them using non-federal work study students. So about how many applications should they expect?
Well, it would definitely depend on the job. I've seen up to 60 applications for a part-time position. It's not necessarily that many. It could be 30. I don't actually go in. I don't really go in. Once I post the positions, I don't look at the requisitions after the fact. So I'm usually not looking at how many applications there are, unless there's a question from the supervisor to ask me to do something that I'll go into. But it could be up to 60. It depends on how long you have the position open for. Some supervisors only want it open for a week. Some ask for a month. It depends on what you're looking for.
The more specific you can be in your job description or job requirements, makes it easier to weed out those people who aren't necessarily qualified.
Yeah, because I can, when I'm doing the requisition for the job, there's a question about how long do you want it to be open for. So if you don't want to be open for that much, I can do it for just a week. But if it's, I can do it for a month, or I can do it for until the end of the semester, for example. And that'll influence how many applications you have. And yeah, go ahead and email me job description. And then once I submit the requisition, it might take about a week for the job to post, so expect a delay. And then once I get notified that the job is up, I'll send you the link to the job And I'm gonna give you the username and password, you're gonna have to log in, that's how you go and look at the job posting and the applications. You have to log in, I'll send you that information when it's ready to go. Interviewing applicants, this is OPS, so there's really nothing special about interviewing non-benefited hires. There are no special questions other than federal work study. The questions will depend on what exactly you're looking for. And if you're interested in training for job interviewing, the Central HR, not us, but Central HR, they have a job hiring training course. I believe they're offering it at the end of this month. If you want to register for that, go ahead. I can send an email out with the information if you like.
So how many of you have hired students before? So, you can always work with someone who has hired before if you don't know how.
Okay, so at this point, you've brought someone in and you've realized you want to hire them. So what you do is you send them straight to the HR office, to me. And you could, on the slide, there's a list of documents that they are going to need to bring with them if we're going to do this smoothly. And Social Security card is, they cannot work, well, they really can't work without any of these, but Social Security card tends to be the one that trips everyone up because students, the Social Security card might be with their parents and they live like in another state, or a student has told me when filling out a form that her mother signed her Social Security card, and at that point I couldn't hire her right away because I can't, you're supposed to sign your own Social Security card, not, your mom. And, most of the time, she's like, well, other departments have let me, I haven't had a problem with this. I said, it's probably because you didn't tell me your mother signed it. Because once she told me, I really obligated to not let her work. So she had to get a new one. So they need a driver's license and UFID, completed blue cards. You know what the blue cards are? You seen them? I have blue cards. If you need blue cards, just send me an email and I'll throw them in the mail to you. They're like this big. Huh? And they're blue. And check grant funded and add the mini grant project number. I guess that's what you want.
Yeah. Well, Nadine can show them when she meets with them to discuss their budget, so.
And a voided check for we make them fill out a direct deposit form. A voided check is necessary. We can't even hire them without that, which seems silly, but we require it. And that voided check has to have their name, address, and of course the bank, the institution. It cannot be a temporary check, which is blank, so that's not going to be good enough. If they already are working in another department, which means they already have direct deposits set up, it's not necessary, but I really tell them that because you don't want to assume that they're set up. But if they're already working somewhere, they probably already have that step taken care of. But make them bring it in anyway, just in case.
Does this still have to be the actual Social Security card, or can it be a reproduction?
No, technically, it has to be the real thing. I have to tell you that's what you're looking at. Yeah, they can't bring in a photocopy. I have to verify it. And for federal work study students, a federal work study permit, they can print out from ISIS, sign it, date it, turn it in. And I've run into problems with federal work study students who I entered in as student assistants, which means the department pays the full wage, but they were actually federal work study eligible, but never turned in their permit and didn't tell me they were federal work study. So there were some departments this semester who have had students who they budgeted as federal work study, but the the department was paying for August, starts in August for the semester, August, September, October, they've paid us 100%, student assistant. Supervisor looks at the budget, realizes they're like $2,000 in the negative, and they're trying to figure out why their budget's so far off. And then they say, hey, this person is paid as student assistant, but she should be paid as federal work study. I say, oh, that sucks, because I can't retro back to August. I can only go back as far as the current pay period we're in. So, well, we're in November now. I can only, if someone came to me now and said, and I actually have to do this for a couple of them. Students should be federal work study. I can only make them federal work study as of the beginning, as of last Friday. So as of last Friday, now they'll be paid as federal work study. And we can't get departments their money back. So the moral of the story is, when you hire federal work study, within the first month, look at your budget, look at how all your students are being paid, and make sure that federal work study students are being paid as federal work study, because you're not getting that money back. So that was a huge problem I had to deal with. And lastly, international paperwork. They take longer to hire than citizens. So I just hired one last month, and it took about 2 weeks to get the student hired. So there's extra steps that we have to go through for international. I have to send a tax packet to tax services. They have to approve it, send it back to me, and then I can submit the hire. And with citizens, I can submit the hire, and then I can say, okay, they can work now. With international students, I can submit the hire, then I have to wait until everyone approves it. And then at the very end, then I can say, like weeks later, okay, now they can work. So just a warning for international students, don't expect them to work right away. Okay, so payroll blue cards. Those blue cards are for payroll. This is a grant class, so check yes for grant funded. That tells Jennifer how to do the payroll distribution, which is very important. For the project number, use the mini grant project number assigned to your project at the initial budget meeting. We'll begin with the letters MG. Please put your department and your department ID, and it should reflect your home department. Because sometimes students will jump around to switch departments, and you don't want me to assume I know which department they're supposed to be in. Because the department, student, say for example, student works in 5509, which is DLC. So their department ID is 5509. Their payroll distribution won't be 5509 if they're paid off of grants. It'll be 5501. So that's why you want to be clear about what their home department ID is, because there can be confusion with the payroll distribution as opposed to what your department ID is. So please put in the department ID that they're working in, not where they're getting paid from, which could be different.
The one reason why you need to make sure that you're using the correct department and department ID for their home department is if you want to be able to approve their time and you put their funding department, you're not going to see their hours and you won't have that capability. So, and we have to set that up with IT systems to allow you to be able to see their time.
And at the bottom, the effective date is the desired start date. So whatever day you want them to start working, usually it's better to put a future date. If you put the date, you can put the date that you send them here. I'm probably going to cross it out and put a later date because I have to. I can't hire them right away. So, and Grover confirmation. Once I submit a hire, I submit a Grover that says so-and-so is being hired by DLC. This is the supervisor, this person's student assistant. And then what IT will do is they'll take that Grover, they'll attach whoever the supervisor is to the notify list so that you'll be notified that this person is ready to be hired. So once you get a Grover saying, new hire for this student that you hired, that means assume that that person can work now. And initial meeting with OPS employee after hire. At this point, you're going to want to talk to them about workspace, the expectations of the job, and time and labor entry. Which I'm doing. You're doing time and labor entry? Okay. Yeah, I can do it. I know it was. Okay. So for that Grover I sent, I put the department and the supervisor. What they do is they give you permission to see that student to approve their time. So that's why it's important to have the right department information. Okay, so checking in employees' time. Log into my UFL. And on the left side, go to Manager Self-Service. Time Management Home is one of the categories. And go to Payable Time Detail. So what you do is you enter in the employee's ID and the start date. Click and search. Usually you want a start date to be a Friday because that's the beginning of the pay week. And then this is what you'll see. So I'll see this person's federal work study. It'll say federal work study if they're federal work study. If they're not federal work study and they're student assistants, it'll say, I believe, student assistants. So that's one way to know if your federal work study person is actually an assistant correctly. Time should be entered daily by OPS employee. Time entered must match the actual time worked. The pay week begins Friday and ends Thursday. Any time worked over 40 hours in the pay week is overtime and will be paid at 1.5 times the normal rate. And all overtime will need prior approval from Grace.
Okay. This goes back to the same thing of knowing what your student's schedule is supposed to be and not allowing them to work more hours. We had one student who was being paid from 3 different places, so they accumulated overtime. So the department who approved their time last is the one who got charged of the overtime rate. The library will not pay for that. It comes out of the department's overtime budget, or the regular OPS budget.
All time must be approved by PI by the payroll deadline. And please pay special attention to the email sent out by fiscal services, usually by Jennifer, and early deadlines, and keep employees informed. For more information, please visit the Helpful Payroll Links page on the library HR website. So approving time. You're still in time management, and you'll see that there's different categories. One of them is approvals, and go to approved payable time, and you can, this way you can search, if you're looking for an individual employee, you go ahead and check the Get Employee ID box, so then you can enter in the employee ID. And if you click search, it'll bring up that one record, that one person. And if you want to save this this criteria for future search, click the box on the far right, the last circle on the right. And that will save it for each time you look. If you want to look for all the employees in your department ID, go to go to Get Group ID. It's overlapped by the circle on the left. Click on that, go into Group ID, and you go to your department. And it'll show you all the employees that are in your area. The last one is get all employees, it shows everybody. I don't know, can they see everyone?
Only those within that department ID.
Okay, so I can see everybody then.
Yeah, because you're an
Because I'm
administrator.
special? Okay.
Yeah, you're special judge.
Alright. So you don't have to worry about that, get all employees. If the time is correct, check the approve box and click approve. And actually, I would click on the more button because there's actually, it can be hidden information. There could be time subtracted and time added because of an adjustment that doesn't show up. So if you click on this right here, if there was an adjustment to the time, it will show you the history. And you may not actually, the total hours may look correct, but the way they actually did it might not be, and you actually want to check on that.
You can also, from the time management menu on the left side, go to view time, and that'll actually take you into their punch time and show what time they actually punched in and out for each day.
Okay, so for terminating employees, you'll want to contact me immediately if an employee terminates. And by doing that, it's one of those blue cards. And there's a termination box on it, just check it, give me the effective date of termination, and that date should be the day after the last day they worked. Not the last day they worked, the day after they worked.
People saw it normally.
Yes. And otherwise, I'm done.
So you have other expenses besides your employees. Then you're gonna submit a Grover ticket. I don't know, have any of these, any of you done Grover tickets before? Yeah. And as I said earlier, you wanna always put your MG number on there so that Sonia knows, or whoever's doing the Grover ticket knows that it's being paid from your grant. Once Sonia gets the Grover, if she has any questions, she'll contact you directly for what she might need. Because sometimes it'll be a new vendor and she'll need an application and a W-9. So she can do that for you, but you'll need to provide her with some information so she can do that. Okay, if you're hiring a contractor,
So this is for Cindy's proposal and for Richard's proposal. I think that's it.
so that this is a little bit of the nepotism thing. It's important to establish that the nature of the service does not constitute an employee-employer relationship. Hire may not serve as an employee in any department on campus, and a contractor in the same calendar year. Family members may not be hired as consultants. A purchase order will be set up prior to the work, so they can't work on your project until you have a purchase order in place. And Sonia will help you with that once you send in your Grover. If they're already a vendor in our system, then they won't need a vendor application in W-9 because we'll already have that. But she will contact you if they're not. And let you know what she needs in order to get them in the system.
So before you go to cost share, for Cindy's project, which is actually Shelley Arlon is the PI, we're contracting with Digital Worlds. So it's a department on campus. Did you want to?
Okay, when you submit the Grover ticket, then, Sonia will send you back the consulting professional worksheet, which will have to be filled out, because that tells us what the terms of the agreement are, the start dates, end dates, how we're to pay them, whether it's a lump sum, or we pay them monthly, weekly, and it needs to include a description of the work that's being performed. And then once we have that, then she'll go ahead and set up a requisition, and then let you know what the purchase order number is. And when we get the PO, then the other department, in your case, they'll be notified, and that's how they'll charge against your grant funds.
Okay.
But any questions you have as far as what kind of information or anything, Sonia will let you know.
Cost share, everybody has cost share on there. So each semester, I'll send you an email requesting that you fill out the cost share form. I think it's in the packet there that there's an example. But I'll let you know when those are due. You'll get an email saying when you need to have them back to me, and that'll just get put in your file. There's the cost share form truncated. Okay, and then the budget reporting. I'll provide you with each month a financial report of your mini grant. And I hope you will pay attention to them and make sure that all the information is correct in there. Because the sooner we know that there's a problem, the better off you're going to be, the better off we're going to be. If you can provide me with the anticipated work schedule for your student, then I can do a projection for you to help you out for the entire year, so that you can see if you're staying within your budget for the hours that you have that person working. Okay, if splitting the OPS budget between more than one area, it's your responsibility to monitor the funds. I can't remember why that came up.
Because on one of the mini grants we had before, the project was being shared, and one department was actually doing the hiring and monitoring of the work schedules, but it was the PI. We should have been monitoring the funds, and we ended up with some complications because they ended up overexpending their budget. So then one area who needed budget didn't have enough, and nobody noticed it until it was too late. They ended up not being able to utilize all their grant funds.
So this is a sample. Yours won't look exactly like this, but it'll look very similar to
It's
this.
in your packet too.
Mhm.
So this is the summary,
Mhm.
budget summary.
This will be the first page you'll see, and that just summarizes all of your detail. So, and if ever you don't understand this or something doesn't look right, please just send me an email and we can figure out what the story is. The top part, that will be your project number, that'll be the period. And then underneath whatever, because I try to do it for every pay period, which is every 2 weeks. So that'll tell you what it's as of that date. The first part is your budget on this. Then the expenditures to date. In this case, and I think in this, in these mini grants, they're gonna span over 2 fiscal years. So that's why there are 2, like it'll start out this year with a 2010, 2011.
Up there so they can
Oh.
see what you're.
Oh, okay, sorry. Right here. It spanned 2 years, so that was what was paid in the first year, and then that's what's paid to date. And then, so that's your personnel, and then if you had any operating expenses, it'll be in this column. This one didn't. And then this will be where your projections are. So when you're looking at this, if you want to know hard cash, what do you have left? It's right here. Total available cash. These are your expenses to date. And then the projection is if you're going to have money for your expenses to the end. So the projection will be here for personnel, there for expense, and then your total. So that'll tell you if you're going to have money left over at the end, or if you're going to, you're doing fine and you're using all your money, or you're overspending. And then this is more the detail. This is the second page. This will have whoever's getting paid off of this, each pay period. And then over the far right, you'll need to scroll to see everything. Far right, it'll do totals. And this is for the projection. And it'll have whoever it is. The titles on the left, as Joe was saying, if you thought someone was a federal work study, if they're not under FWSP, they're not. They're not being projected as that. So and you think they are, then you need to contact Joe or me to find out why they're not.
So maybe we should talk just a minute about those of you who are gonna hire students, and you have that, the grants committee awarded you that amount of money for OPS. If for some reason that you were able to hire a work-study person, you would get more hours out of your budget. If you feel that you need someone to work more, then you might want to consider trying to get a work study. And in your case, Chris, if you have 2, you might want to have one as a work study so that you can make sure that you have enough time in your budget, since this is something new that you haven't done before. And that way, the strategy might work better for you to have one regular and one, not regular, but whatever that's called, and the work study, federal work study employee.
And then this would, if you had any other expenses, this is another, the third page that will show up. And it'll show you when when it was done, who the vendor was, what it was for. Totals it up. These are all linked to the first page. All of these other pages are linked to the first page.
Okay, so let's go over the reports, which is in your packet, the supplementary packet. So there's an interim report that'll be due halfway through the project. It's about 6 months. And I'll send you notification, and I'll send you this electronically. So this is just for our purposes today. What's important is that we want to know where you are in your activities. So we want to know a list of what you've accomplished to date and what you have left to accomplish, so that we know that things are moving. So in the world of grantsmanship, the problems always come to light with regard to managing people. It could be that the person that you hired, if you rely on an OPS or a vendor, it could be that there's problems with that person and their personal life. And they weren't able to start on time, or they're halfway through and some emergency comes up. So in the grants world, there's always these situations. We are trying to make provisions. Well, so this interim report form will tell me if there's a problem that you haven't communicated to me about, right? There's a hidden problem, things aren't getting done, you're halfway through your time grant period, and you're not halfway through your activity list. There's a problem. So in conversations with other grantees last grant period, we determined that there were 2 projects that needed no-cost extensions. We don't have a slide for this because this is just something that came up that we haven't included. The grants committee hasn't created a policy for how to deal with no-cost extensions, and that's why we didn't want to put a formal policy slide here. So let me just share with you how I handled that situation. In the world of grants, most agencies that give grant funds, provide a no-cost extension, which means they're not going to give you any more money, but they're going to give you permission to finish the proposal, because they want to see the actual results of your work. They don't want to stop you simply because the person that you hired got sick or died, or something, something serious happened. The vendor that you got was inappropriate, they went out of business, all of this stuff can happen. So there are very few agencies, unless they're government agencies, that some government agencies will not give you no-cost extensions. The library's mini grants program wants to give you a no-cost extension. We don't have a policy for doing that. So what I did for these 2 projects was to find out what was left to be done, to find out how much money was available, to determine with the PI, could they finish the project with the money that was available, and how much time they would need, reasonable time, to finish the project. And so we were able to get these 2, they're going to finish in December instead of October 31st. So that's all, that's fine, the grants committee's fine with that. And we didn't have a formal application for this no-cost extension because it had never come up before in the history of the mini-grant program. And so I'm going to be working with the grants committee to come up with a formalized form that says, what have you accomplished to date? What's left to do? How much money do you have left? Why didn't you finish the project? What were the reasons and the barriers to having you do this, to having you not finish? And then determine whether those reasons are legitimate or there was some kind of irresponsible behavior by the PI that then prevented it from being completed, and then therefore you probably don't deserve a no-cost extension. So the library's mission is to make sure you get educated on how to do grant work and that you have a positive experience, and that's what our team is here to do for you. So that's the only other thing that could happen. Well, there are probably other things that could happen, but we haven't experienced them here at the libraries yet, and that's why they're not in the training. So I'd like to open the floor to questions. If you have any questions about what we've gone over, if we've missed something, or if you want to illustrate something that you would like to share with everyone.
If we have a situation whereby a student isn't doing the work for whatever reason, if they die in a freak yachting accident or something, can we hire at that stage somebody else? So it's
Yes.
not locked into those 2 particular people?
Correct.
Okay.
And if a student doesn't work out and you need to terminate them and you work with Joe's office to terminate them, better to do that. This is you know, this is library money that's being granted to you to do the project. Whatever you have to do to successfully execute your project is what you have to do. And even with your cost share that you've estimated your cost share, we would like to know if that was an accurate projection, because this is the first year that everyone had to indicate what they actually were projecting it was going to cost the libraries to do X. So let's say for some, that you don't really keep track of the cost share, or you don't ask your people to really keep track of how much time they're spending. Then we lose data. Let's say in the future we want to create a training program with a new piece of equipment, and it's a grant-funded project. I can go to Maryland and say, how much time did it take, and which employees worked on it, so we can figure out how much it would really cost, estimate the cost to do X. For Richard's project, the library's never had its own oral history program. We've always outsourced that. We want to know how much does it actually cost the libraries in time and effort to get this project done, so that if we want to create another proposal for an oral history project and we want to do it ourselves, we can use the data that Richard accumulates by seeing how much time it took him, how much time did it take his professor. Even though the professor's not within the library, we would like to know this information so that we can reuse that for other projects. The library is hoping to get better at project management, and most of the projects that we do that require funding are in the grants area. And the more we learn about what it actually costs us to do X, the easier it is to prepare future budgets, not to be guessing all the time. We think it's going to be this. Because the worst thing that we want to actually emulate or expose is that we haven't used the grant funds that were granted to us. The worst thing you can do is ask for more money than you actually need. And then you have to give it back. Well, that, I guess it could be worse that it costs more and you didn't get that. But for the funding agency, the worst thing is that you didn't use what they spent. And why do you think that is?
It could have gone up somewhere.
It could have gone to someone else. So you over budgeted, and we could have funded another mini grant, but we couldn't because we were out of money.
Well, wouldn't that be a concern with using federal work study then as well? If you budgeted for non-federal work study, then you use federal work study?
No, we can,
We'll get left
because
over
Nadine's
without
gonna
any-
project, Nadine will project, and if you do that and you don't, then there will be money left over, but you know why. It wasn't because, it was, you strategically used your money more wisely and didn't need it, as opposed to over budgeted kind of because you had no, no idea and then prevented. In this case, we deliberately advise you to budget for the full OPS, because we can't guarantee that you're going to get a qualified federal work study, and we don't want to under budget and then have you not be able to finish the project. But that's a good example of, yes, sometimes an agency will appreciate if you save them money. More in the private world. In the government world, they want you to spend all the money they give you. So, are there any other questions or things that we should go over? Yes?
We're a bit confused about the hiring process. My project requires a student to work in the DLC, and the student will be managed and trained by them. But so I'm still in charge of doing the hiring?
I think that you'll probably be working with Lori to hire the appropriate person. But you don't want to delegate 100% of the responsibility to DLC. So if you're part of the conversation, part of all those conversations that happen between DLC and the employee to do the work, then you are taking responsibility. Even though you're not supervising the person, you know who the person is, You know that they are working, you know how much they've done, you know if there's any problems. So it should be a partnership between you and Lori, or you and Randall, in terms of managing that employee. Is that okay? Because you can't absolve yourself of responsibility when you're the PI on the project. Even though the project, you're not a digitization expert, but you will be learning about digitization through having your partnership with Lori and how they work with their students. And you want to know which student is assigned to you, and you want to have a relationship with that person.
So at this point, it says on these slides that once notified, you've been awarded many grants at the budget meeting with Nadine and Bess.
Yes.
So we need to contact you about setting that
Yeah.
up, or are you going to contact us?
I can make an appointment to set that up, just to make sure. In your case, it's a pretty easy situation. It's just one purchase. It might be that we don't need to. You have one budget line in your budget. So Nadine and I will be communicating with each of you to customize what it is that we need to do with you. If we don't need a meeting, we won't meet. If we do need one, we will. Yes.
With our project, we're trying to set up a meeting pretty soon with Digital Worlds people. So should we meet with you guys first and get the form filled, like the contractor form filled out, or when should we do that, or should that happen before we meet with Digital Worlds? Because we're just gonna just talk.
We should meet with you first.
Okay.
And then maybe we can give you some examples of agreements or something like
Okay.
that.
Question for Joe. What does it say here? Student assistant federal work study rules cannot work during exam weeks. That's been true for. I mean, I've had them where.
They're not supposed to be, no.
Really? How do we get around that this year? Because we rely on the student assistants to work during extended hours.
It's on tape.
They're not supposed to be working if they have exams.
If they have exams.
Yeah.
So it's like the same as
it's
they're not
been
supposed to work
kind of a
during their class
standard.
hour either,
Yeah,
but
right.
that's loosely,
Yeah.
So that's what you meant by the schedule.
Yeah.
Cool.
Any other questions? Comments, closing comments? Hopefully this was helpful. And thank you, and good luck. We'll be in touch with you to set up your accounts.
Yeah, Christmas would be great, circulation on Christmas Eve, be ready.
Yeah.